I'm okay. It was much more emotional than I thought, and I found it very hard to speak outside the court.
Music legend Sir Cliff Richard is coming back to Australian shores. After decades of keeping his private life behind a curtain of smiles and songs, music legend Cliff Richard has finally opened up about the one heartbreak that never healed. In a surprising confession that shocked even his biggest fans, the beloved singer, now 83, broke down in tears as he spoke of a woman he once loved deeply but never got to spend his life with. So, who could she be? And did he love her so much? Join us as we unravel Cliff Richard's emotional confession about his love. Cliff Richard's hidden love for many decades. Cliff Richard has stood in the spotlight, smiling, singing, and shining as one of Britain's most beloved and lasting stars. To the public, he was always polished, kind, and full of charm. But behind that bright image, there was something he never shared, something personal, a truth he kept quietly tucked away, even as the world kept asking questions. For years, fans wondered why Cliff Richard never married. He had fame, he had fortune, he had adoring fans and more opportunities for love than most people could imagine. Yet through it all, he remained single. Many guessed, few truly knew. By the time Cliff reached his early 40s, he wasn't just a pop singer anymore. He was a legend. With hit after hit, a clean-cut image, and millions of loyal fans, he had become a national treasure. But behind all the fame, behind the smooth TV appearances and sold-out shows, Cliff was still just a man. And like many men, there was someone he could never forget, someone who stayed quietly in his heart for decades. That someone was Olivia Newton-John. The world first heard Olivia Newton-John's sweet, angelic voice in the 1970s. Her songs were soft, sincere, and full of grace. But Cliff saw even more when they first met through mutual friends in the music world. Something clicked. They kept running into each other, on stage, behind the scenes, at charity events, and television specials. Every time, Cliff was more and more drawn to her. She was everything he admired in a person. Graceful, kind, grounded, and radiant. She had this light, he would later say, not just on stage, but in everyday life. You couldn't help but be drawn to her. At the time, Olivia was still rising quickly through the music industry, full of ambition and youthful energy. Cliff, already an established star, offered friendship, advice, and quiet support. But inside, something more began to grow. Cliff, who had always been private and cautious about romance, found himself thinking about her more than he wanted to admit. She made him smile. She made him feel things he wasn't used to feeling, but just when he might have said something he didn't. Because Olivia was engaged, and Cliff, ever the gentleman, would not cross that line. She was spoken for, he later said, and I respected that. You don't step into something that isn't yours to touch. So instead of love, he offered friendship. Real, deep friendship. The kind where you could laugh without saying a word. The kind where you could sing together without needing to practice. The kind where just one look was enough to understand how the other was feeling. But behind every hug, every duet, every quiet conversation, were words Cliff couldn't bring himself to say, and so he stayed silent. In his 2008 autobiography, My Life, My Way, Cliff finally admitted what he had hidden for years. Yes, I did fall in love with her, but I never told her. With that one sentence, so many questions suddenly made sense. By the time Olivia had become a constant presence in his world, Cliff had already made personal vows to his faith, to his family, and to his music career. And those promises weren't just words to him. They were real, and they came with real sacrifices. So he never acted on the love he felt. It wasn't that Cliff didn't feel love. He felt it fully, deeply, painfully. But for him, love was never just about emotion. It was about timing, honor, and responsibility. And when those things didn't line up, he chose silence over regret. He chose friendship over heartbreak. Now with Olivia gone, Cliff's voice trembles when he speaks of her. The tears come easily, because for more than 40 years he quietly loved a woman he never dared to tell. And that kind of love, the quiet kind, the faithful kind, the kind that never fades, is perhaps the most powerful of all. So why had Cliff Richard never married? Why did his relationships never seem to last? Why, even when surrounded by the glitz and glamour of celebrity life, did he often seem quietly alone? Let's find out. Richard's silent devotion to Olivia. Cliff. Richard was only 21 years old when he lost his father. A heartbreaking moment that changed everything for him. One day he was a rising pop star with the world at his feet, and the next, he felt the heavy weight of responsibility fall on his shoulders. He suddenly became the man of the house, feeling a deep duty to care for his mother and sisters. It wasn't just about music or fame anymore. His family came first. At the very same time that success knocked on his door, grief walked in too. Cliff could have let it all fall apart, but he didn't. Instead, he made a choice to hold his family together. Years later, he spoke about that time in deeply honest words. Showbiz was in my blood, but my heart was with my family. I couldn't let them down. That sense of loyalty shaped the rest of his life, especially when it came to love. Cliff had a reputation for being clean, polite, and scandal-free. While many celebrities of his time were partying hard and making headlines for wild romances, Cliff chose a quieter path. He became a Christian in the 1960s, and it wasn't just for appearances. His beliefs were real, and they helped guide his choices. While others gave in to the temptations of fame, Cliff held back. He knew people looked up to him, and he didn't want to disappoint them. But living by such strong values didn't protect him from something else: loneliness. During the 1970s and 80s, Cliff became close to someone very special, Olivia Newton-John. As their friendship deepened, so did his feelings for her. He fell in love, truly, deeply, but he never told her. The right moment to speak had come and gone. She had moved forward with her life, and Cliff, true to his principles, refused to stand in her way. Instead, he stayed close, as a loyal friend. He offered her support, encouragement, and quiet kindness, and she never really knew how much she meant to him. Not fully. Over the years, Cliff dated other women. His most talked about relationship was with tennis star Sue Barker. For a while, it seemed like he might finally settle down. The media buzzed with rumors of engagement. Fans held their breath, hoping for a happy ending. But in the end, nothing happened. Looking back, Cliff described his love life as a series of false alarms, and people couldn't help but wonder, was it because, deep down, he had never let go of Olivia? Whenever interviewers asked why he never married, Cliff usually dodged the question. But after Olivia's death, the truth began to show. He had loved her, but he chose to stay silent. Not because he was afraid, but because the timing was never right, and because he had made peace with the idea of carrying that love in his heart, quietly and alone. As the world fell head over heels for Olivia Newton-John, Cliff watched it all from the sidelines, with a mix of pride and heartbreak. By the late 1970s, Olivia had become a global star. When Grease hit the big screen, her role as Sandy made her a household name overnight. Cliff, already famous himself, could have felt overshadowed, but he didn't. He felt nothing but happiness for her, and a quiet ache he never spoke of. In public, Cliff was full of praise. He admired her voice, her grace, her spirit. He defended her choices. They even performed together, most memorably in the emotional duet Suddenly. To most, it was just a beautiful ballad, but to those paying close attention, it felt like something more, a glimpse into a deeper connection neither of them ever fully admitted. Behind the cameras, they shared warm conversations, inside jokes, and a closeness their friends said was impossible to ignore. But still, Cliff stayed silent. She had everything. He once said, the voice, the presence, the kindness. But the world often forgot just how real she was. No ego, just heart. A heart that, sadly, belonged to someone else. Olivia eventually married, had children, and built a peaceful life. And Cliff stayed close, but never too close. He didn't interfere, didn't confess, didn't risk her happiness. He stayed in her life not as a lover, but as a steady, supportive friend. There's something deeply moving about a love like that. The kind that asks for nothing, causes no drama, and doesn't even need to be returned. Cliff carried his feelings like a treasure, hidden, sacred, and protected from the world, even from her. For decades, fans wondered. They noticed the way he looked at her, the softness in his voice when he spoke her name, But Cliff never gave the tabloids a headline. He stayed respectful, graceful, and heartbreakingly quiet. Even when asked directly, he gave simple answers. She's one of the finest people I've ever known. I always feel better when I've seen her. But what he didn't say was this: she was the one, the love that never left his heart, even after she was gone. In 2022, the world was shaken by heartbreaking news. Olivia Newton-John had passed away after a long and brave fight with cancer. People everywhere mourned the loss of a beloved star. Tributes came pouring in from fans, fellow artists, and celebrities of all ages. She had touched so many lives with her voice, her kindness, and her light. But among all the messages of love and remembrance, there was one tribute that quietly stood out. It came from Sir Cliff Richard. He didn't hold a press conference or give a dramatic television interview. Cliff chose a softer, more personal way to honor her. A tender public letter and a few heartfelt appearances where his emotions spoke louder than any headline could. What could be so important that made Richard write a letter? And what did he say? Let's take a closer look. Cliff's stunning revelation. In those quiet moments, Cliff revealed something that left many people stunned. He called Olivia pure light and said she had been one of the greatest blessings of his life. But then, almost without warning and with hardly any fanfare, he said the words he had kept hidden for over 40 years. She was the love of my life, and she never knew. Just like that, a secret he had guarded for decades was finally spoken. For those who had followed Cliff since the 1950s, through the screaming fans, the glittering performances, and the endless applause, it felt like a deeply personal moment. It was as though a man who had always smiled for the cameras had finally let the world see his true heart. His voice trembled when he said her name. There was no performance, no showman's act. He was simply a man in mourning, speaking his truth through tears. He had stood beside Olivia on stage. He had shared jokes, memories, and music with her. He had written songs near her, but never about her. He had memorized her smile. He had loved her, and she never knew. The honesty of his words struck something deep inside people. Anyone who had ever loved someone silently, anyone who had ever wondered, what if I'd told them, felt that ache with him. Cliff didn't speak out of bitterness or regret. He wasn't angry. He didn't wish for things to have been different. He was simply grateful for having known her, for having shared time and friendship with her, even if it never turned into something more. Cliff never tried to interfere in Olivia's life. He never wanted to cause confusion or sadness. When she became engaged, he quietly stepped back. He hadn't lost her, because he had never truly had her. But in his heart, she had always been there, and now that she was gone, the weight of that silent love had become too heavy to carry alone. What made his words so moving was the way he said them. Not with anger, not with tears of regret, but with quiet sadness and deep thankfulness. He remembered how bright her spirit was, how kind she had been, how honored he felt to have been a part of her world. But still, you could hear it in his voice. She was the one, and he never got to say goodbye the way he had hoped. Cliff Richard's life has been one many would envy. Over 250 million records sold, knighthood from the Queen, #1 hits across decades, and a place in the hearts of fans all over the globe. But behind the glittering success, there was one thing missing. He never had a love. Olivia Newton-John wasn't just a chapter in his life. She was the unfinished page that always stayed open. So who was Olivia Newton-John? Let's find out. Olivia Newton-John. Olivia Newton-John was born on September 26, 1948, in the historic city of Cambridge, England. Her parents were Brinley Bryn Newton-John and Irene Helene Bourne. Both were born in 1914 and came from very different yet equally fascinating backgrounds. Her father, Bryn, grew up in Wales in a middle-class family. He later became a very important man during World War II, working as an MI5 intelligence officer on the famous Enigma code-breaking project at Bletchley Park, the secret heart of British wartime intelligence. He even played a key role in arresting Rudolf Hess, one of Hitler's top men. After the war, he took on a quieter but still important role as the headmaster of Cambridgeshire High School for Boys. And that's where he was working when Olivia was born. Her mother, Irene, had a very different story. She was born and raised in Germany. into a Jewish family of intellectuals and scientists. In 1933, her family made the brave decision to leave Germany and move to Britain to escape the growing danger of the Nazi regime. On her mother's side, Olivia came from an extraordinary line of brilliant minds. Her grandfather was Max Born, a Nobel Prize-winning physicist who helped lay the foundations of quantum mechanics. Her grandmother, Hedwig, was the daughter of Victor Ehrenberg, a respected Jewish legal scholar, and his wife, Helene Agatha von Gering, who was from a Lutheran family. Through Helene, Olivia was directly descended from Martin Luther, the famous Protestant reformer who changed the course of Christian history. And believe it or not, somewhere further back, Olivia even had royal blood. She was descended from a Spanish king. Her family tree included other remarkable people too. Her great-great-grandfather, Rudolf von Gering, was a famous German legal thinker, and her uncle, Gustav Born, became a well-known pharmacologist. Olivia was also distantly related, through the Ehrenberg line, to British comedian Ben Elton, making them third cousins. Olivia was the youngest of 3 siblings. In early 1954, when Olivia was just 5 years old, her family made a big move. They packed up their lives in England and sailed on the SS Strathard to Melbourne, Australia, looking for a new beginning. Her father found work as a German professor and became Master of Ormond College at the University of Melbourne. During this time, the family stayed active in the church, especially since Bryn was leading the Presbyterian College. Olivia grew up in Melbourne, where she went to Christ Church Grammar School in the leafy suburb of South Yarra, and later attended University High School in Parkville. It was in these schools, surrounded by music and sunshine, that her love for performing began to blossom. What was her private life like? Let's find out. Olivia's personal life. In the mid-1960s, Olivia Newton-John dated Australian actor and singer Ian Turpie. They starred together in the 1965 musical film Funny Things Happen Down Under. The two first met in 1963, when Turpie visited the coffee shop where Olivia's singing group, Saul 4, was performing. Their relationship lasted until Olivia moved back to England in 1966. In 1968, Olivia got engaged to Bruce Welch, one of her early music producers and a co-writer of her hit song, Please Mr. Please. However, they never got married. Olivia ended the relationship in 1972. After the breakup, Welch was so devastated that he attempted to take his own life. In 1973, while vacationing on the French Riviera, Olivia met British businessman Lee Kramer. He became both her boyfriend and her manager. They had an on and off relationship and lived together at times. But it was often rocky. Olivia once described it as one long breakup. They finally split in 1979, and Kramer later returned to England, got married, and went on to manage other artists, including singer Krishna Das. He passed away in 2017. In December 1984, Olivia married actor Matt Lattanzi, whom she had met in 1980 while filming Xanadu. Their daughter, Chloe Rose, was born in January 1986. But by April 1995, Olivia and Matt announced their separation, and they officially divorced in 1996. Friends said their differences, especially Olivia's interest in spirituality and Matt's more down-to-earth lifestyle, played a part in the breakup. Despite the divorce, they stayed friends. After her divorce, Olivia began dating cameraman Patrick McDermott. Their relationship lasted on and off for about 9 years. In 2000, McDermott mysteriously disappeared during a fishing trip off the coast of California. At the time, Olivia was in Australia at her Gaia retreat and spa. A U.S. Coast Guard report in 2008 said he was likely lost at sea. A friend said McDermott had seemed sad after their breakup, but not hopeless. In 2010, a private investigator working for a U.S. TV show claimed McDermott had faked his death to collect life insurance money and was hiding in Mexico, but they gave no solid proof, and the claims remain unproven, mostly spread by tabloids. In 1993, Olivia met John Easterling, founder of the Amazon Herb Company, which sold rainforest plant products. Known as Amazon John, he's an eco-businessman who later launched a company called Happy Tree Microbes, which makes natural products for plants. When they first met, both Olivia and John were married to other people. Years later, in 2007, they began dating and got married in a spiritual ceremony in Peru on June 21, 2008. 9 days later, they held a legal wedding on Jupiter Island, Florida. So, what do you think about Cliff Richard's shocking revelation? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.